Now you can get the same uncompromising truth you've come to expect from the Final Call newspaper on all your connected devices. Subscribe to the Final Call Digital Edition today. Go to subscribe.finalcalldigital.com.
This house is dedicated to knowledge and to the spreading of knowledge. Elijah Muhammad inspired new thought, new mind, new way of civilization among black people. But he wanted a house from which a light could be lifted up to give guidance to all who would be guided as this world begins to close down. This national center for the re-education and retraining of the black man and woman, but for the totality of the human family of our planet. I named this mosque after the only woman that the Quran names a chapter after, the mother of Jesus, Maryam. All human beings need to be re-educated. That is the purpose of the National Center.
Assalamu alaikum. I am your brother, Donell Muhammad, a student in the ministry class under the divine guidance of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, the one God to whom all praise is due. We thank this one God for traveling some 9,000 miles. We thank this one God for not sending a prophet or a messenger, but coming himself in person, and in that person of Master Fard Muhammad, the great Mahdi, God in person, fulfilling that piece of scripture in the book of Matthew 24:27, as lightning shineth out of the east even unto the west, so shall the coming of the Son of Man be. We thank this one God for making his appearance known on July 4th, 1930, and searching among us, finding one worthy among us in the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, his Christ, now Mahdi. And we thank the two of them for not leaving us comfortless, but gifting us and giving us a modern day Jesus, a modern day Messiah, their Jesus, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. I greet all of our listeners, brothers and sisters and guests in our nation, greeting of peace, of Assalamu alaikum, and welcome once again to another installation of the program entitled My Walk with Jesus as a Muslim. Our topic for this evening is a continuation of a series, and that is history, the rebuilding of a nation, the rebuilding of the nation of Islam, the early days. We have on our program this evening to take us further into this history, to take us further into what Islam has done for us, what Islam has done for me, what Islam and what our walk with this one that is the modern day Jesus has brought. He is a brother, a friend, a fellow student in the ministry. He is the Barry White of public speaking. He is the Luther Vandross of presenting the teachings of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan from the body of knowledge given to the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad in a face-to-face meeting with him. He is the student minister in Akron, Ohio. He is a brother and longtime supporter and worker with me in this rebuilding effort. I thank Allah for the day I had the privilege and honor of meeting one of his soldiers, one of his creatures, one of his creations. I present to you at this time my brother, my friend, our brother and friend, student minister Stephen Muhammad out of Akron, Ohio.
All praise is due to Allah. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Minister Donell, and thank you so much for the opportunity to be on your platform, on your program, and just to be in your presence to have a real and brotherly dialogue. And also thank you to your producer. And from what I have seen so far, brilliant brother, who also shares the name Stephen, though his is with a V and mine is with a PH. I can feel his energy, and certainly I appreciate his genius, his hard work, and his skill set. And I think Brother Rodney is also on deck. And these are all long time soldiers and what we call battle-tested brothers, you know. And that's, to me, is the great beauty, to have the privilege of serving with men like that, and having you a part of my history and me being a part of yours. I appreciate being on the program.
Thank you, sir.
So let me start, big brother. And I'm going to get to something that happened with you and Minister Farrakhan came to Akron in just a minute, that I never forgot, and that I'll always be indebted to you and thankful to you for, as my big brother. The work that you have done in Columbus and in Ohio and in our nation. We have big names like Nuri and Dr. Wesley and Dr. Ava and people that are on that national and even world stage, and they do their part. But equally as important to me is that individual who is on the ground, that when believers come into the mosque, they can find a firm resting place, always there, always receptive, always of service, day in and day out. See, the national stage is great, but they go around and do what they do. But those interpersonal connections don't always take in those relationships. Our growth and development depends on what we are doing on the ground. When believers come into the mosque, when they come into this community, by my estimation, they're looking for a firm resting place. And love is what binds us. And I'm just coming to understand that more and more as the days go by. What we do, and this is not the rostrum at all, but what we do for the lives of those believers that come in to our presence, man, is invaluable, right? And you, Brother Donell, have done that, not just for those that come into the Columbus Mosque, but also for these young upstarts, these young ministers who were coming in the 90s and didn't know at all what we were engaging in and what we were about to do. But you did know. and I'll get to that in a minute. But that is very important, that you help these young people not know or see too much too soon that could ruin them, and give them a chance to grow, so when the heavy weight sits on their shoulders, they're ready for it. The Honorable Louis Farrakhan does that for us in the way that he does, which is so beautiful. But even equally as important, that needs to happen on all levels. And you have done that for me. I can't speak for anybody else, but you've done that for me. And I'm indebted to you for that. You and your beautiful wife, Sister Shirley, and your family and the believers there in Columbus. So I just want to make sure I give that credit to you and make that acknowledgement, because we don't know when we're going to be together again or what tomorrow is going to bring. But I wouldn't be able to say any of that had I not had some of these experiences that I'm going to go into for these next 5 to 6, maybe 10 minutes. But so in the name of Allah, the beneficent, the merciful, we thank Allah over and over again for his love and his mercy, his divine expression to the human family by way of revelation. So we thank Allah for
have we lost brother?
Yes, sir. His connection dropped. So hopefully he'll sign back on here in a few.
Okay. Well, in the meantime, let us just continue. Brothers and sisters, again, we're talking about the history. Oh, there you are.
yes, sir. Just as we've been on for a whole half hour with no problem.
Right.
And as soon as the transmission starts,
Satan always gets involved when you start saying certain things.
Yes, sir. Given that divine intro, well, we thank Allah for intervening in our affairs in the person of Master Fard Muhammad. And we thank him for raising one from among us who would be a leader, teacher, and guide. But more than that, as you've already acknowledged, Mahdi, as the God moves, he moves. So when the God goes up, he goes up. And as he goes up, speaking now about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, into the hat of Mahdi, our beloved minister, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, now sits in that seat as the Christ or the Messiah. And that's something that we have to say at the opening. And then hopefully our experiences will bear witness that we believe that to be true. So it is in their names that I greet all of you who are on the program with the greeting words of peace. Assalamu alaikum. My history in Islam has been so interesting, and I'll try to give you a cliff note look at what has happened for me. And in principle, you'll see that it is also true for many of you who are on the program. But I was born 2 months premature, and the doctor, this is in 1967, the doctors told my mother he won't make it because his lungs just aren't ready yet. And back in 67, if your lungs weren't developed, that was it. And my mother said, oh, yes, he will. And she prayed for me. And I did make it, obviously. I'm in front of you today and came through a difficult birth, right? And I didn't know it then, but I would later learn that my father had also prayed for me. And he didn't tell me this until many years later, after I had joined the Nation of Islam and began to do this work and helping the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and trying to love Black people and love self at the same time. But he said to me, my father, by the way, may Allah be pleased with him, had his doctorate in divinity and was a Christian pastor. He worked in Columbus for many years. And after I had made my way and came into the mosque and began to grow a little bit and put some roots in, he told me, he said, I never told you this, but I also prayed for you that if God allowed you to live and gave you to me, that when you matured, I would give you back to him. Now, I don't know how he knew he was going to do that, but because, when your children get a certain age, you don't know what they're going to do. But I was one of those that hung in there, stayed the course, and certainly he told me that now, at that time, that he believed that his word was made bond, that I was actually given back to Allah. But when I first came into the fold, he wasn't so sure. So in 1985, I was graduating high school, and he was trying to get me to go to college where he wanted me to go, which was Livingstone down in North Carolina. And I went and visited. I was a track star and all that and did my thing. And when I went and visited the college, I was like, I don't think I want to go here because they had a cinder track. And I had been spoiled up here in Akron on a more modern track. So I was looking for a school that could accommodate me. And I wanted to go to the South, ended up settling on Winston-Salem State. Had never seen the campus or anything, didn't have websites then. So you just had to get you a catalog and then hope that your decision was going to be the right decision, right? And ironically, I chose Winston-Salem State because of the name alone. I didn't know anything about the school. And as some of you know, that's the same college that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan attended for 3 years before he left. Also, the irony here is that you wouldn't know anything about Minister Farrakhan if you went to that campus, even probably today. As great as our minister is, there's nothing on the campus that pays tribute to his contribution, which is criminal to me. But I'm on the campus. I get there in 85. I can't stay because they don't have a room for me. There was no room at the inn, Brother Minister Donell. So me and my father had to get back in the car, drive back to Akron, and then I revisited and went back in the spring. Unbeknownst to me, that fall for homecoming, the Honorable Louis Farrakhan had come to the campus. Again, I don't know who he is. He had come to the campus. He had walked around the 2 dorms, Brown and Bickett, the 2 major male dorms, and he had interacted with the students and everything, and had went to the homecoming game. And I thought to myself, you know, had I known him then, would that have interfered with my trajectory in trying to follow him? And I believe the answer is yes, it would have interfered, because I would have seen something that God wasn't ready for me to see yet. So it wasn't until 1988, this is now 3 years later, when Jesse Jackson is running for president, or thinking of running again. He had ran in 84, then they boxed him out in 88, as you remember. But there was some videotape coverage playing from the 84 event in the language lab. And I'm in the language lab doing some research, and I asked the brother who ran the language lab, his name was Ray. I said, Ray, who is that dude behind Jesse Jackson? He said, well, that's Minister Farrakhan, man. I said, well, who is he? He said, brother, you don't know who Minister Farrakhan is? I said, no, sir. So he gave me a tape, and the tape was called The Minister in Brooklyn. This is 1988. I took the tape home, but I never played it. Came back to the campus a day or two later, gave him the tape back. He said, so what do you think, bruh? I said, well, it's okay. Now, looking back, I know he knew. Brother, if you had played that tape, you would have some questions from me, or observations or comments. So I think that he knew I didn't look at the tape, but he never called me on it. He just said, okay, well, if you like that one, try this one. And that next one he gave me was called Jesus in Your Midst. And boy, did the minister say some things on that tape that I was absolutely wondering, what is he talking about? And that was the beginning of me getting hit over the head and having some oil poured, and beginning of my wake up process. And it was 2 years later in 1990, because I'm still goofing around on campus and doing my thing. I hadn't fully come in, still drinking, you know, easing up on chasing women, because I knew something was coming and something was happening to me, but I wasn't quite sure what it was. And in 1990, when I finally graduated, I was there for the summer finishing some things up, and the Honorable Louis Farrakhan was coming to Charlotte. So we went, and it was a small arena downtown Charlotte. It seated about 6,000 people. And looking back at that message, it was real basic, real general information. He was just starting his Stop the Killing tours. Mr. Donell, you'll remember that. But I was floored. I was sold. I was getting ready to join this. I had been going to the mosque. I had been going to FOI class, but I hadn't written my letter yet or anything like that. And so I would later, after seeing the minister, of course, I was turned up. I'm going all the way in now. And I came on home, got registered in Mosque 18 in Cleveland, and began the journey, man, to try to find out who I am and find out who God is. That's really what this boils down to, you know, the knowledge of God, the knowledge of self, 2 sides of the same coin. And started working in Mosque 18, and boy, oh boy, it was quite an event. Mosque 18 is one of those mosques up in Cleveland that there's always something going on. Always some kind of tumultuous difficulty jumping off. Right now they got Minister Quran up there, and believe it or not, he's the best thing that Cleveland has had since I have seen. Now, I love Brother Roland, and he was highly effective as a worker, but being in that mosque as a laborer then, and now having grown a little bit, I can see that the work is important, but nurturing people is more important. Because if you can, we saw brothers do the work, brothers Donell, but then after the Million Man March, all the mosques emptied out. People were worked out and they were tired and didn't see no end coming to that final call newspaper. And so they cleared out. I mean, we had some powerful men that we trained with. And so I thought to myself, well, Cleveland needs somebody who is cut from a different kind of cloth. And where that person was going to come from, we didn't know, but here he is, and he's doing a very good work there now. But at that time, 18 was, it was the general mosque environment. You had, you know, your captains, and you had believers who were filling up the place. They were waking up. There was a big wave that came in when we were coming into the mosque. And the Honorable Louis Farrakhan, up through the Million Man March, you saw our ranks were filling up with men who were my age, right? 21, 22, 24 years old, that kind of thing. And we did a great work there. And I thank Allah for that history with 18 and with Mosque and Minister Rowland and the laborers there. You see Brother Tyrone in that picture. May Allah be pleased with him. You know, one of the greatest captains that 18 had. And very organized and very energetic young men. Quick story, in 1991, when the Honorable Louis Farrakhan came to Public Hall in Cleveland, this was our first event. And as a registered Muslim, we went out, sold tickets, sold the place out, 10,000 people. And the day of the event, me and Tyrone get stuck at the mosque answering phones, brother Minister Donell. And now, you know, everybody want to be where the minister's at. And if it's your first event, come on, man. We were answering phones. I couldn't believe it. I thought we had done something that had angered the gods, man. For us to be at the mosque, and not one phone call came through, by the way. Not one. But we submitted. And at that time, I wasn't any officer or anything like that, and neither was Brother Tyrone. But later on, I would become a lieutenant, and he would become the secretary, and then later on the captain. And then from there, we went into the ministry class. At least I did. And when we had our first study group service in 1994, our first mosque meeting, rather, we had our first study group. From the picture you saw, my sister was doing the sign-in sheet. That was 1991. So Akron has been an interesting reality. I decided to come home to Akron because my mother was here, and but my intention was to go back to North Carolina because that is where I really felt I would have a better chance of building a life. But Akron has a way, Ohio has a way of when you're here, you get stuck and then you can't get out. And of course, Akron, when we started building here, I just felt an allegiance. I felt like Black people needed somebody who was genuine and sincere. And after learning about some of those old ministers who had worked to help the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and some of the damage that happened to believers, man, who gave everything and then somehow felt like they had been betrayed, I wanted them to know that their work was not in vain. And they were watching me to see, well, what kind of dude are you? Are you somebody who's money hungry? Are you somebody who's looking for a second or a third wife? You know, what are you doing? Because they had been through all of that. And so I felt that it was my obligation to show them that they had done something that was bearing a good kind of fruit, you know? And that's one reason why we ended up working to build Akron and then, of course, staying in the process. And so later on, you know, 94, we had our first Sunday meeting, and Truth was back in Akron. It was 19 years after, of course, the fall of 75. And we had a full house. Everybody came out. And I thought, well, this is it. This is the bump we've been waiting for. Akron's finally going to start working independently of the, quote, mother mosque in Cleveland. And of course, Brother Rowland, who yielded a lot of influence and power at that time, did not see fit to let us go. We ended up staying in 18 for another year, up through the Million Man March. And then later on that next year is when the Supreme Captain then was Abdul Sharif Muhammad said, first finding out that we were in that reality and relationship with 18, when he found out, he said, y'all don't go back to 18. You stay in Akron and build. And if any of those laborers have a question, they can call me. You know how much Sharif was, Brother Brother Donell. They can call me. So I said, yes, sir. And it wasn't a year and a half later, August this month, another couple of days now, the 20th, 1997, the Honorable Louis Farrakhan was on a revival tour. He stopped through Columbus on that tour. And they were on the conference call, the captains, and the minister said, the Supreme Captain, Abdul Sharif Muhammad said, well, the minister wants to come to Akron. And so Brother Tada said, well, they could just come to Cleveland, Brother Minister, Brother Supreme. And he said, no, sir. He said, the minister said he wanted to come to Akron. So I need help. I get Brother Donell on the phone. What do you do? There were some other brothers up here who were helpful. I hadn't really built a connection with Brother Richard, who was then in Cleveland. Brother Roland had already departed. No, Brother Roland was still on point, but he was on his way out. But he came to the event. And but Brother Donell, as I was on the stage trying to bring the minister on, we had a leadership meeting in the city. And then we had the big event at the Bookto High School, which is what the picture shows. And I'm on the stage beating people up, man, because I'm young and don't know. And I feel like this is my chance to let all these haters, the people who leadership that ain't been walking the walk and lying and doing this and that, I'm going to let them have it. And just as I'm in my little rhythm, Minister Donell steps up. He had hair back then. He handed me a note and said, make friends, brother. So I saw the note and I'm trying to get myself collected because, you know, when you bring the minister to your city, we had a program we had built. This is what we get ready to do. We had all these people on the program. And the Supreme Captain said, this is too many people. He said, just you go out and then you bring on the minister. And I don't know when the minister's coming on. And all these folks we had on the program, brother, they were upset with me thinking that I had robbed them of their chance, man. Now, we had sold all the tickets. We did all the work. And they thought I had robbed them of their chance to talk in front of all these folks that were waiting to hear from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And so I never forgot that. I wish I had kept that note because that was a seasoned brother saving a little greenhorn from ruining relationships that he knew you're going to need these folks down the road. As soon as they calm down and you calm down, they'll be ready to work with you. And that's exactly what happened. So I thank Allah for brother being there and being a good watchman and a big brother to this little young 30-year-old who was trying to find his way. So yeah, those are some of the best years that I really remember. A lot has happened since then, of course, but as I look back at, well, what does all that equal, brother? Now it's been 30 plus years that you have been in service. You know, why did you come to Islam? And why are you staying in this work? We were joking earlier, you know, about, you know, packing up and leaving and letting somebody else get in here and do this because Black folks can be hard to deal with. And sometimes that's how you feel. I wish people would be more honest and more transparent and say, some days I really don't want to do it. But when I reflect on the fact that if I'm feeling that way now, I know with the little things that I've been through, I know that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and all that he has been through has had those same feelings and mastered them. So it really helps me to appreciate him more. Even when I look at the years that Minister Donell has put in, you know, gaining properties, losing properties, believers coming and going. Now people, you know, as we get down the road, you're doing more janazas and you're seeing people's lives, man, as they close out and transition. You know, it's an honor to be able to serve folks through all of those different life conditions. But you start asking the question, you know, so why do you stay? And what does this really equal for you, man? are you pleased with your reality? Because Allah says in the Quran, not only should he be pleased with us, but we also should be pleased with him. And so what he invites us to is something that, by my estimation, I have to be able to appreciate it and not make my assessment of my life from the things that hurt me or the things that I didn't like. Allah says in the Quran, you dislike a thing while there's good in it for you, right? So when I see, and again, I keep going back to him because he, to me, is somebody we can see, touch, and feel, Brother Donell. Other personalities, if you call them, they may or may not call you back. I'm waiting for a call back now from Minister Ismail, right? And I try to leave him alone because I know he's busy. And listen, in the central region, to be here is not like being in another region. Our central regional minister is also, he wears several other hats. So sometimes you have to wait. And what it helps us to do is really grow up a little bit more and handle our business, handle our events and our issues in a way that other regions, I believe, may not have that same charge or opportunity because of the dynamic that we have here with our relationship with the national headquarters mosque. So I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. If I ever left Akron, I wouldn't want to serve as a minister. I would probably go and just fall into, how brothers do when they leave from a big service position. They go and they fall back into the chairs, not as a rank and file soldier, but somebody who now is more of an advisor, But for me, again, when I think like that, I say, wait a minute, if Brother Donell is still at it, and this is the logic that I use, if he's still going, right, and he's seen more than me, I look at him and his wife, I say, okay, so these are some of the cues that we take on how do you function, man, because you don't have a manual on how to do this. We look at the Honorable Louis Farrakhan, of course, and say, well, he's where he is, and he has this, that, and the other, and we can take cues from his life. But having somebody who you can really see, touch, and feel, or if I need to, jump on 71 South and go and knock on his door and have a real interaction, to me, that is as important. I just don't want to, I don't want to miss that in this interaction, because I know as Muslims in the Nation of Islam, when sometimes we don't think much of the brother that you work with every day. We say we love God and you never work with him, right? You ain't been on no mother plane or any of that. You never had an interaction or a meeting personally with Master Fard Muhammad, or maybe you did, but I haven't. But I get that opportunity in a real and personal way with gems like Brother Donell. So I thank Allah for you, big brother, and I hope that he blesses you with everything your heart desires, and then some, you and your family. Yes. So just to close this portion out, because I can go for hours. I haven't been doing any mosque meetings, so we have a full cup. I would say right now, after COVID and during COVID, and with the things that we've seen, with believers that come and go, and with the life conditions, now our children are all grown. Me and my wife, Sister Satya, also known as Sister Gina, we got married in '93. I think I included that picture, but I might not have. But she's been a great blessing to me. I don't have one thing in this life, as I was counseling with a couple yesterday, I don't have one thing in this life that I wanted that the God has not blessed me with. So if you hear tomorrow, Brother Stephen fell down with a heart attack, may Allah be pleased with his effort, you can know that he was okay with the life that Allah God blessed me to live. And I wouldn't want any other life. And that, I don't know how many folks can really say that. I wouldn't want any other life. I like the life that I have. I love my children. I love working with the believers. I love working with Black people, even though we can be very difficult. And I love working with people, because what we have is universal, man. Anybody can benefit from it. And when they meet you, and Brother Donell spoke on this earlier, they know there's something different about you. And as they spend time with you, you find them wanting to share things with you. You find them wanting to be in your company. And that's when you know that you're starting to really reflect the man of God, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So I think that's where I'll kind of end it, Brother Minister, and open up for some dialogue with the panel members, with yourself, and we can go from there.
Yes, sir. Brother Stephen, are there any questions on the floor?
We have no questions as of yet. I guess I can go ahead and start off some of the questions.
Please.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I wanted to ask you, you know, as you were talking about the college life, and we know how how that can be with so much going on. And so, can you tell us, you know, some of the, you know, internal emotions that were going on with you as you were embracing the teaching that you could give to some of those who are in that, you know, condition and situation in college right now?
Absolutely. I had several experiences that I couldn't quantify or explain when I was coming up, and I didn't know what to do with them. One was in Philadelphia at a family reunion. I was in the room waiting for my family to show up. We were doing something, and something entered the room, and something was having an interaction with me, and I didn't know what it was, but I was starting to wake up a little bit, and meaning I was starting to wake up mentally. And so some of these events that I was having were like preludes to the full awakening. And then the next year, I lived off campus with a friend. I'm in my apartment, and I had something of a similar experience. You know, if you ever been asleep and you were in a dazed mode where you were half awake, half asleep, you could hear, you could do all these things, but you couldn't move. It was something like that, but it was a little bit different. But my reality was starting to change, and I knew it. I just didn't know how to understand it. But I'm saying that to say I began then to gently divest myself of certain things that I knew weren't good for me. So I started seeing, well, how long can I go without fornicating, right? And so I went 1 month, and then 2 months. And mind you, I wasn't no big lady killer, nothing like that. But I still had, you know, I was young, and I'm on a campus where the women outnumbered the men 11-1. So I started working on that, and then I had 6 months, and then a year, right? So I'm making good progress there. The drinking, you know, we drank a lot on the weekends and stuff like that. I was making progress there, and I was starting to mature, because while all that was going on, I was going to mosque meetings. They weren't having any Sunday meetings, but they were still having an FOI class, and they were having a study group there in Winston-Salem. They had not opened up a mosque just yet. This was 88, 89. But so I'm saying that to say, I knew that I had help. You know, when the Quran talks about Moses' mother, she had reservations about putting him in the water. And Allah God says, we came to her and eased her affairs so that she would be able to do a very difficult, really a very unnatural event, like putting her baby in the water. And it's kind of like that. I knew, I was looking back, I could see very clear. I had help to do that, but I had to make the decision that I was going to fully go in and make the effort to meet the God halfway. You know, first time saying the name Allah, all of that, growing up as a Christian, right? And that's just something that we do by default. I never even knew I was a Christian until 18 years old, sitting in the kitchen talking to my mom, and she asked me the question. She said, "You're a Christian, aren't you?" And I was like, "Well, I guess I am." But I was just existing. You know, whenever we want to find God, then we typically go to where we believe or have been told God is. And that's why it's so important for us to have a standing and a presence in the community, so that when people start looking for God, they won't just go to the church, they'll see us too. And inshallah, they'll engage with us. So I was lucky in that respect, but I still had to make the decision that I was going to start to try and clean up and get the earring out my ear. I had an earring, Brother Donell. I had 2 holes in my left ear because that's how we rolled back then. Taking the earring out, all of that. But it was really a natural progression. And so, yeah, while we did have mixed feelings and controversy, right? That's what Study Gahanna Morning is all about. Being around people really helped. There was one brother who, when I didn't go to a few mosque meetings, he called the house and he said, Brother Stephen, we haven't seen you at the mosque in a while. And that's the first time it dawned on me, you've been going to the mosque, man. Right? You've been going to the mosque. So I was able to start thinking of myself in terms of what a brother is and some of the things that I thought might be true about what it means to be a Muslim in the Nation of Islam. Yes, sir.
All right. Brother Rodney has a question.
So it's more of a comment. Mr. Stephen, I want to thank you for pointing out something that a lot of people here take for granted. You said something about Mr. Donell that a lot of people don't realize. You refer to him as a gem. A lot of people don't realize that Mr. Donell has been around since the Honorable Mr. Farrakhan decided to stand back up. And he's been consistent. And I want to thank you for pointing that out by identifying him as what he is. He is a gem, a jewel in our midst. And a lot of us don't realize that. And I want to thank student Mr. Donell for his consistency and his determination.
Well, that's what I paid Brother Mr. Stephen to say.
Yes, sir. No, brother. And Brother Rodney, you have been helping our brother, right? You've been there for many years also, all the years that I've known. We were all young men together, right?
I want to thank you for that, because as you was talking and brother put a picture up, and I looked at that picture, I was like, you brought back a lot of memories, a lot of things that I had forgotten. You know, we all go through some things, and I've been through some things, and I forgot a lot of things. But what some of the things that you were saying, it brought back a whole bunch of memories of how we used to move all over Ohio and Cincinnati and Kentucky when the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan would come through here on tours. And oh man, yeah. A lot of history.
Those were the days. This is my opinion. If you were in these ranks working the Honorable Louis Farrakhan, more than
Put your earplugs back in your ear. We can't hear you.
Gotcha. Yep.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, put them back in your ear.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear now.
My personal belief is that if you were in these ranks pre-Million Man March, the Honorable Louis Farrakhan talked about how when he was in his more than a vision experience on the wheel, while he was hearing the Honorable Elijah Muhammad talking to him, a scroll rolled down in his head. He had information and intelligence that was being, by today's language, downloaded into him, and it had time release on it. And at certain stages in the history, things would come out. And I believe something similar has happened to us if we were walking with him, right? And we going into the Million Man March, the greatest miracle in the history of the world, that class of believers has something that's going to be invaluable upon his ascension when he's no longer here. We know that the council is being aligned and designed to do something in terms of what the national agendas and activities will be, but there's also a lot of intelligence that we have who have been walking with him all these years too, that I think will come into play and be very important, even critical, as we try to keep our sanity once the sun sets and the earthquakes start and all that, and people are losing their minds. All of us are gonna have a big role to play with that one. So inshallah, we will. And you're in that class, brother Rodney. So we thank Allah for Brother Donell, and we thank Allah for the Brother Rodneys, the Brother Stevens, and all of these brothers, man, these great believers who have been in the classroom of God, man.
Yes, sir. Brother Stephen, do you, in your journey and your walk with other young men your age, what do you give the credit to for your own longevity in spite of the hard trials that you've had to face in your life? What do you give your longevity to, as opposed to, let's say, someone who started with you,
I don't
like,
have no volume.
but no longer is no longer involved in this walk? What do you give the credit to for your longevity in spite of the obstacles that have been put in your path? Do you need to repeat that for him, Brother Stephen?
Hold on, let me look.
Yes, sir. He says he can't hear. I think his signal was going out. So
Okay.
hopefully he'll come back in and we'll be able to
Sure.
get that question from him. But once again, I'll bring Brother Rodney on as well. Once again, I think that thank you for this program, My Walk with Jesus as a Muslim. Number one, because it's showing that many of us come out of the Christian faith, and I don't want to say out of the Christian faith. I really want to say that we come out of the ghost spell of the European or Eurocentric crafting of Christianity.
Yes.
Yes. You ain't got to clean that up. You said it right. You said it exactly right. When we come out of the Christian faith, you said it exactly right. Don't try to clean it up. It is what it is. I was born and raised in the church, Christian, born and raised Baptist, all that. So, but, and I tell people now that I haven't left Christianity. I understand it better. So when I explain what it is that you say you believe to you, you're going to look at me like, wow.
Right.
There he is. Can you hear us?
Yes, sir. I got you back. Having some technical difficulties on my end.
That's all right. The question was, what do you give the credit to for those young men that started off just like you, for those young people that walk with you, were exposed to the same listenings of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan that you were exposed to, and in spite of the obstacles that you have faced, in spite of the sometimes rough treatment by people who believe like you, what made you stay the course?
I was talking to the laborers more just recently about the importance of bonding with other people, because when you get ready to quit, when you think, all right, I'm not taking this no more, and when we reach the breaking point, that's somebody coming to get you, the same way Brother Jabril came and got Minister Farrakhan, is critical. And so for me, as I sat in many FOI classes and listened to us say yes sir and no sir and thank you sir, when really we should have raised our hand and said, I have a question, or I'm going through something that I need help with, or I need to process a difficulty that I'm not handling well, or just simply I don't know what to do. I'm struggling in my marriage. I don't know what to do. I'm breaking the law. I don't know what to do, how to stop it. We don't have that availability, that mechanism, but we need it. And for me, I was privileged to have a support system around, and I was willing to be vulnerable, where a lot of men, and they still do it today, we put a mask on and we posture, we pretend, but we don't always just say, hey, I need help, and know that that's okay. I don't think we'll ever bond appropriately with Allah unless we do like we see the Honorable Lord Farrakhan doing. He's always an open vessel for us. He doesn't try to act like he's something that he's not. And for men, black men, there's no way you haven't had some trauma. You know, there's no way. I mentioned earlier, we were joking, but it's really a very serious thing when you sit in cases and hear the things that are happening in people's homes. These are things that, hey, man, they're indicators here that something is going on with you, brother. And the FOI class is supposed to be the place where those things can be dealt with. But that mechanism hadn't been installed yet. I wrote something and submitted it to Minister Ishmael's office years ago, 10, 15 years ago. And I knew he would probably look at it and say, oh, Brother Stephen, you're some nobody from Akron. Let the big boys handle this. But sometimes the little man is seeing things that, because he's getting hit, right, that we don't always pay attention to when we're on those real big stages. And so I just think it's important that we speak up when we have to. And if we've survived, Brother Rodney and Brother Donell, then we've seen some things that we know men are going through. And I would use the rostrum to try and just speak to that without disallowing the brother to save face or believer to save face, but speak. You know, we were taught years ago, the Quran and Bible, anything that we're experiencing in life is in that book. So, and we know now, if it's a book where the scientists hear the people then write it down, then their inner motivations are in that book. So those events can be dealt with effectively. You know, again, going back to the importance of having that low servant who's on the ground with you. Somebody come in and do an applause lecture, that's great. But when they leave, you still have to deal with those issues, man, that are day-to-day issues that men and women, believers in particular, have to navigate. There's no way around that. So Allah has blessed me, man. I don't take no credit for saying, well, I was smarter or I was better. I know I trained with brothers who were better, you know, than me. They sold more papers. They had more of an impact in the community and all that, but they didn't help the whole time, right? And may Allah bless those men to come back. But last thing I'll say is this. At 19 years old, and Donell, you can witness this, is when Imam Murathuddin Muhammad stood up at the mosque and said, you all are doing it wrong. And I believe he was referring to how the believer was being treated in the mosque, you know, by laborers. And like Brother Donell said, it was a rough ride then because they had to get that foundation in, man. and they didn't have time always to attend to whatever you were struggling with personally, right? But now the Honorable Louis Farrakhan talked to us about going from law to the highest manifestation of law, which is love. And that's the Moses and the Jesus expression. Moses comes in with law, and then Jesus comes to help you graduate from law to love. Now I do the right thing because it is the right thing, not because somebody's going to catch me. That's an individual who has grown out of those childish ways of thinking and doing, and has really been freed from the bondage that comes with being black in America, black males in America who have that toxic masculinity in a real destructive way. But when it comes to being vulnerable, he don't want no parts of that. But I can't grow unless I'm open, and I can't be open unless I'm vulnerable. So again, the minister has shown us how to do all that, man. So all praise is due to Allah for raising the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and both of them giving birth to the Honorable Mr. Louis Farrakhan.
Thank you, Brother Stephen. I like that answer, and that is the key. We have to be willing to open ourselves up to what is necessary to help us. And if we can see in the converse that we have opened ourselves up to everything that Satan has brought us, in spite of his overt history of killing us, and all of us that right now are open to the deadly experimental vaccine. So you mean to tell me you can open yourself up for that, but you cannot open yourself up for God and your brother trying to help you? So thank you for sharing that, brother. That is a key factor if we're ever going to move forward. And I'm glad Allah blessed you to come to see that, in spite of maybe the many obstacles and or the non-attentiveness of those of us that may have been around you that could have helped you sooner. Thank you, brother, for sharing that. Does anyone else have any questions before we wrap this up? In fact, let me just wrap it up in the last 2 minutes. First of all, Brother Stephen, thank you for accepting the invitation. Thank you for sharing what I would say is your heart. This is what this is all about. If we don't speak from the heart in relationship to the facts that have shaped us, then we really are no help to anyone, because if all we're going to do is recite what we think the right thing to say is, there can be no progress in that, because that's just rhetoric. All of us can recite certain things, but to recite those things in relationships, as you so beautifully put it, into what we're actually going through, that's what is critical. And I think Allah bless you to communicate that very beautifully this evening. Thank you for helping us, all of us, the listening audience, the registered and non-registered believers in Allah in this critical time, as we heard this morning delivered by Minister Ishmael Muhammad in the separation or death. A lot of what you just shared really opens that up to what we have to start doing if we're going to make any progress in this hour. Thank you, Brother Stephen, for coming on. Thank you for your brotherhood over these many years. Thank you, and may Allah continue to bless you as I greet you in peace to all of our believers, all of our listening audience. We meet every Wednesday and Friday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We meet every Sunday morning at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We meet every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on My Walk with Jesus as a Muslim. Let's be mindful that we must support Black enterprise. This program is sponsored by, produced by a Black man, a fellow believer, a fellow struggler, a fellow lover of his people. Let's support him. Cash App, Blaqsage, or paypal.me/Blaqsage. If you want to contribute to the Nation of Islam, go to noi.org/donate. If you want to support the local effort right here, go to paypal.com, bring up Muhammad's Mosque 43, and in the notes section, put local, admin, or ministry, and or building fund, because if we come up out of this and the brick and mortar mosques reopen the portion they do, we need to have a place to go. But in the meantime and in between time, the lion has broken out of the cage of 3,000 by 2,000 square miles, which is the United States of America. And we have the virtual technology now so that we can still communicate. We can still help one another, as our brother so beautifully did this evening out of Akron, Ohio. And if you want to support him, go to his page. He has programs as well, and support Brother Stephen Muhammad in the area where you are receiving your benefit. We all have to work together. Work with your brother, support your brother before you support another or other outside of your community. Thank you, brothers and sisters, as I greet you in peace. Assalamu alaikum.
Greetings, dear listeners. We have been blessed by Almighty God Allah over the 90 years of our work in the Nation of Islam and lifting our people up from the miserable condition in which we find ourselves. We ask your support of our effort, and we hope that you will be generous and make a contribution to the work of the Nation of Islam and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan by clicking the button below, or go to noi.org/donate. We thank you in advance for your support. May Allah God continue to bless you and your families. Assalamu alaikum.
Now you can get the same uncompromising truth you've come to expect from the Final Call newspaper on all your connected devices. Subscribe to the Final Call Digital Edition today. Go to subscribe.finalcalldigital.com.